All right. Okay, well, great. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for attending today's hemp production webinar, which has been a part of our ongoing hemp series. We want to quickly thank our sponsors, the Northeast Extension Risk Management and Education Program, as well as Northeast SARE, that have continued to provide us grant funds to bring hemp outreach and education to folks around the Northeast. So just a quick thank you to them. I'm Heather Darby here at the University of Vermont, and today I'm joined by Catherine Davidson, who runs the show in the background, and also joined by Omar Oyarzabal as well, who is a private consultant here in Vermont. He's a certified HACCP auditor, and he's been working in the food safety industry for over 20 years. And he's been working with many food businesses and related industry throughout the country and beyond for, again, over 20 years. And we're really excited to have him with us here today. And I reached out to Omar a while ago because we had a number of questions coming in about safety, food safety with hemp. And in particular, once the hemp is harvested and inside and drying or dried, how do we make sure that we keep those products safe and from growing molds and any other microbials that might be harmful eventually to human health and to the product itself. So Omar was really interested in working with us on trying to provide some education to growers and to others that work in the industry to give them some basic information and tips about how to keep their hemp safe and healthy, the products they're producing, as well as the material that's coming out of the field. So I'm going to turn it over to Omar, but I first just wanted to mention that we are going to have our first in-person field day. I think Catherine had a slide for that, if you wouldn't mind moving it to that one. Yep. We're having our first in-person field day up at Borderview Farm in a couple of weeks, August 10th. It's going to be an afternoon field day from 1 o'clock to 4:30, and it will only be focused on hemp. And we're going to be touring the research plots, visiting with various seed companies, several that we've heard from during this webinar series, like Oregon CBD, and also Rick Fox from Meristem Farms here in Vermont. And then we're going to be having some breakout sessions where we'll be learning about pests and diseases of hemp. We're going to be doing a little bit of basic sensory and aromatic training with Roy DeRochiers. We're going to be learning about fiber, paper making, and textiles. And then we'll also be looking at grain and oil processing that day as well. So hopefully you can join us. We have limited space, so get registered as soon as you can. All right, so with that, Omar, I'm going to turn it over to you. And again, thank you for joining us. I think there he is.
Thank you so much, Heather. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you, Catherine, for putting this together. So I will start showing a little bit this presentation, and I will probably turn my video off to make sure we don't get too much of an, you know, taking too much of a bandwidth from my side. So some of the questions that you probably received there are kind of specific, and I'm not sure if I'm going to cover a lot of those specific, but at least I hope I can, you know, start a little discussion with some time for questions. So the outline that I have for today is to always talk about the, you know, terms, regulation, the regulatory framework, because it keeps changing. Some of the specific regulation for the food manufacturer, they're going to be all together. Then we're going to be talking about cannabis product manufacturing, packaging, labels, and again, with the caveat that I'm gonna try to highlight the main areas where it's important to have a caveat because of the regulatory landscape and how some people can sometimes end up having some issues with their product in the market. We will talk a little bit about testing, what are the current testing needs, and at the end, we will kind of open up to questions. I would like to acknowledge the pictures that Kelly Story from Green Queen Candice provided to me. If you are around here, Kelly, or you get to hear it, thank you very much. So, terms. The cannabis plant, we know, is now kind of divided into terms that we use, the hemp and the marijuana, based on the THC content. The cannabinoids are all those compounds that are in the flowering in some different areas of the leaves, in different areas of the plant. The THC is the product that is usually responsible for a psychotropic effect, mainly the 9-delta tetrahydrocannabinol, although we know that there are other similar compounds. There are terpenoids, there are other compounds around. Some of them may potentiate, may kind of synergize some effect that we humans feel. Then we have the cannabinoids, cannabidiols that are without those psychotropic effects. One of those products is CBD, and that product now has been kind of put in a box by FDA because there are some drugs, okay, that have been approved for that. Here in this slide, I try to summarize some of those. These are, one famous one is Epidiolex that is used to treat seizures associated usually with young children, the pediatric age. And we have some others that are coming to appear in the market. Some are synthetic version of a compound that is similar to THC, okay? So once those products end up in drug, it's very difficult to move them to other categories within what is the regulatory landscape that FDA handles, that is cosmetics, dietary supplements, and foods. So the testing, as we said, is gonna split these, plants based on the amount of THC. And if we follow this area in here on the right, it's a very complicated one because still marijuana is a Schedule I controlled substance at the national level. But of course, we have a very complex, ever-changing landscape with the states now, some of them allowing for some medicinal use, recreational or adult use. One of the latest map that I just downloaded, I think a day or 2 days ago, comes from this group, the Legality of Marijuana by State. From all the maps around, this website is usually a very nice one and compile up-to-date changes. As you can see, there are very few states that are having any kind of fully illegal type of sales. Many of them allows for intrastate sale. On the other side of this graph, we have what we have been working with now because of the act, the Farm Bill from 2018, allowing us to have access to growing plants that have less content of THC, and those are the hemp, right? And some food ingredients coming out of that, we will see it later, can be even considered grass or generally recognized as safe, and therefore can be used as ingredients for different, products like dietary supplements, cosmetics, and, food. And this is an area that is still expanding a little bit more. A specific regulation to food are going to be within two categories. Those that really relate to food, not dietary supplements. And we have in here general good manufacturing practices. We also have a myriad of regulation that I try to summarize in, few of them that are basically the type of ingredient that we add to the product, ensure that they are wholesome, that they do not adulterate or misbrand the food. The packaging, to ensure that the packagings are food approved, have what we call honest disclosure or of a statement on the label. For some, of course, we have the nutrition fact panel and some changes that have happened in the last few years on how to present some specific information like carbohydrates, okay? And the consistency with the nutrient claim is a very important one. So most of those are now grouped within 21 CFR Part 17 that are the actual activities that people do to manufacture a product. So we have farms where we raise the plants or animals, and then we have these other facilities or establishment, depending on the regulatory agency, and they are gonna be the ones, kind of dictating what we need to have in there. All these conditions, GMPs are all these basic practices conditions for the manufacturing of wholesome food. And it can be a little bit complicated because we have been doing this for many centuries, and in the last few decades, we have been putting more science on how to address hazards and try to control those foodborne hazards. We don't know really how we're gonna go, but eventually if this goes into national sales that are easy to be allowed, we will eventually have volumes that will require probably some companies or some facilities to, comply with some specific subpart within 21 CFR Part 117 and start creating, this risk-based preventive control. These are all kind of assumptions as we go and as we try to grow this industry. Dietary supplements are a little bit of a different group. In here, you are trying to make a claim about the dietary ingredients, an ingredient that it's important in the diet. We're usually talking about vitamins, minerals, amino acids, okay? That's where we have a lot of the herbs and the botanicals. Again, the same issue of the labeling should be truthful, right? Should follow some of the federal guidelines. Whenever you go into dietary supplement, things get a little bit more complex because the type of regulatory landscape that they have always been more associated to quality issues. Like for instance, when we deal with dietary supplement folks, they are, they test for indicators like the presence of generic E. coli for them is an important indicator that they want to control. In food, sometimes that's not important. I'm talking about generic E. coli, not pathogenic. That is a different group, right? So in food, we use other type of indicators. The traditional microbial indicators all come basically from different changes or metamorphoses over the years from trying to understand the quality of water. We have been doing bacteriology in water for more than 100 years. So that has always been a place that we use as the source on how we try to use some of these indicators, again, for process control, meaning that they help us identify we have some areas in the process where we may be losing the control of the overall microbial loads. So it's important to recognize what can be legally be sold as a food ingredient. I bring in here again the GRAS notices that were really given by FDA to one company that claimed those at the end of 2018, 2019, and then are specific ones like hemp seed protein powder, whole hemp seed oil. We know in those parts of the plant, we're gonna have very, very little products that are, that can have some psychotropic effect, okay? And again, remember, CBD is an active ingredient under FDA drug, so it's illegal for sale on a federal levels. We have different opportunity for sale within the states, and that's where different states have different kind of regulatory landscape. So the question that we are still here, can we sell, or add THC or CBD to products sold as ingredients, dietary supplements? No, if you're doing federal trade, you can't. Interstate trade is prohibited by the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. And again, once we categorize a product within a drug, it's kind of difficult to move it to other categories. Can we get other products from the plant that may not be considered drug and can be considered eventual ingredients? Maybe, and I think there is quite a bit of interest in that area. In general, the hemp product can be used in different ways, right? As we said, just to mention again, food ingredients, in beverages, dietary supplement. It's picking up quite a bit in cosmetics. In this case, in cosmetic and dietary supplements, you may have a little bit of a claim that probably you cannot do if you're using it as a food ingredient. But we will talk later about that. When it comes to CBD, just to emphasize, the CBD is the non-psychoactive compounds in hemp. The THC is a psychoactive product in marijuana. And again, a lot of research going on in there with CBD. A lot is focusing on CBD as a drug. So this Agricultural Improvement Act would allow us to, go into this, creating this definition of the hemp, as we mentioned before. And there are a lot of work, as I mentioned, with companies trying to get purified products that act as drugs. And there is already quite a bit of discussion on the scientific community on how to create, the basic manufacturing practices, or I would say the practices for how to deal with these products that are being studied to be potentially a drug. So food or dietary supplement? Well, we are still having some limited action in there and limited freedom because of the inaction, if you will, from federal agencies. We see some of the hemp-derived ingredients that are considered grass, they can be used, and we see a more increase in some of those products in different type of formulations, beverages or edibles. And remember, they're a little bit different, but they're all, both the dietary supplements and food wants to make sure that the products are wholesome and they don't have adulteration, or they are not adulterated or misbranded. So when it comes to manufacturing, we have a specific, areas that we use. And this is where I believe we need to be a little bit careful in the way we choose words, because we try to create markets based on what we present in the names. We are very creative with names, and sometimes we get into words that can be a little bit complicated and can create like red flags for regulatory inspectors or regulatory agents. And I'm referring to what we write on the labels. We are all looking for a niche in the food or dietary supplement. And sometimes I see a lot of this word hemp infused, and sometimes they are not really an actual infusion, okay? The term infusion, the term tinctures, those are very common use in the dietary supplement, because those are practices that they use to remove a product, a compound from the plant, from the tissue, right? Plant tissue. And they are usually solvents of different kinds, alcohol, lipid solvents, different types. So that has created a series of regulation at the state levels, kind of limiting the type of extraction that people can do, especially with these products, with edibles. Like for instance, most states want to make sure that people use just lipid, ethanol, carbon dioxide, and if you go for something different, they want to review that before giving an approval, okay? And the reason is because infused products that are traditionally the way we have used them in food create a very interesting area, an interface between oily products like lipids and water. And that's where we may have opportunities for a spore of Clostridium botulinum to stay there and really germinate and produce toxins, okay? So the term infusion creates a lot of anxiety with the state and federal inspectors. We also have to remember that all of these products go through different type of treatments. Sometimes we intentionally try to decarboxylate to make them more active. We also know that the effectiveness is going to vary, whether it's going to be, you know, smoked or it's going to be ingested. So when we evaluate products for safety, we take into consideration all those temperature changes, water activity changes, or pH and temperature that some products go to try to help create a product that is safe. And we will see quite a bit of, you know, the states asking more and more people to do a process or to do evaluation and to show official letter where a processing authority has evaluated the product to ensure for safety, right? One of the last comments I have, it relates to really packaging and labeling. Remember, packaging and label are heavily regulated because those are the first thing that they can find in stores. You know, FDA, state inspectors are always checking different stores and products. So the idea is to ensure that we cover safety and watch out for some claims. It's a very complicated scenario when it comes to the interstate sales because sometimes, you know, they are just ignoring some of these products. But remember, it's not unusual for products to start moving through interstate. There are companies that are very small that are already selling product that can sell, you know, on e-commerce, on the internet. So all of a sudden I am in Vermont, but I may be shipping product to Texas. And, you know, so just be aware of all these limitations that we will still have. We don't really know what guidelines will come from SDA, but based on what have happened historically with other products, they will wait, and eventually we will have some guidance that are more related to, you know, what we have acquired as knowledge on how to work around with this product. Labels are bringing a lot of issues. Claims are bringing a lot of recalls, continues to do that in pretty much in all the areas, not only with hemp-based products, it's also with regular foods and you know, dietary supplements and even cosmetics. So we tend to be very creative, and sometimes we break a little bit that creativity and go into something that could be considered a misbranding or an adulteration, actually. All right. So just make sure that if you don't feel comfortable, reach out to somebody that can help you understand a little bit the safety of those products. Misleading claims are, as I mentioned, unfortunately, very common. Sometimes the ingredient description in labels continue to be a little bit of an issue. I review labels and product formulations on a weekly basis, and it's not uncommon to see discrepancy because remember, sometimes in companies there are different people, different groups working at different areas. Somebody just review a formulation, didn't update on the labels. Now that product may be in the market and there are some ingredients that are not disclosed, okay? They're not extremely strict, especially when it comes to ingredients that are in very low percentages, less than 2%, but others that are major important ingredients, you have to be careful and you have to make sure they are disclosed on the labels. Those consequences of the claims are starting to pick up more and more, and can be pretty serious and economically very important for some companies. And towards the end, I left this issue of the testing needs. I see different driving forces for testing. The main one are the states throughout these hemp programs that they have created with quality controls, where they try to determine, pesticide residue, heavy metals levels, microbial loads in dry biomass. All of that is kind of expected, right? It's very achievable in a way, but the requirements are always set up on the type of laboratories that they need. There is also driven by the assessment of the potency of the product, and I'm talking about the potency not just to determine whether it is hemp or cannabis, or marijuana. It's just to the people that are manufacturing, they test quite a bit to say this is more or less the potency I have for some products. And you can go now to dispensaries or some folks that sell this product, and they can give you a grade from very mild to very high, effect. It depends on you and what you're looking for, your tolerance, your I would say also your practice, your experience working with these products. The product formulations that we're gonna see are gonna be very unpredictable. It's always a very creative area of the food industry. We're always looking for new formulations, new opportunities. They come and go. The first ones that get on the up in the first part of the curve, they usually make a lot of money, and when the rest come, the market starts getting saturated and disappears. There are cycles, like we have been going through the cycle of the sparkling sodas and the hard seltzers, things like that. Now, when it comes to the laboratories, it's going to be more stringency on the type of requirement for the laboratories. Like, for instance, the requirements are that they have to have a basic accreditation. One of them is the ISO 17025 that says that you know what you're doing, you're using calibrated equipment. Those are the basic things. So, for instance, when I work with the food industry and we had to do testing like this, or we are trying to solve an issue related to a federal inspection or customer complaints, which are common, I need to ensure that these laboratories have that. And believe it or not, from many laboratories that I have worked on over the years, I keep just only 2 or 3 available because I know they can deliver and they can be trustable on that. Still, accreditation are a little bit expensive, propositions. Now, speaking of labs a little bit, recently, last week, actually, there was an acquisition with Food Safety Net Services. It's a group that started in San Antonio in Texas. Many years ago, they used to get most of the contract for contract testing for the Food Safety and Inspection Service of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They just acquired what is called Certified Laboratories, and the Certified Laboratory Group acquired a group of consultants called EAS Consulting Group. I am a little bit part of that group as an independent consultant. I have done that for many years, but specific cases. And now I'm working a little bit more with them, and some of the senior folks in there are organizing a series of webinars about CBD. That's gonna be in those days. I think the dates have changed. They just build up the website. I will be happy to share that later if you send me an email or something. Yeah, now it's October 13, 20, and 27. And one of the the topics that we will cover in there, they will cover regulations, they will cover testing extensively, because certified laboratories have a very large, extensive, experience in dealing with hemp and marijuana, because they started in Canada, while Canada was a little bit more relaxed at the beginning than the US. So they have a very extensive experience on testing protocols. So with that, that's my email. In case you want to reach out to me, I will just leave it in there for a second, and then maybe I can stop sharing the screen. Thank you so much. I don't know if we have some questions.
Thank you, Omar. So if anyone has questions, they can type them in the Q&A or the chat. It looks like Mary was raising her hand. Mary, if you have a question, you can type it in and we can have Omar answer.
Do you mind reading it for everyone if there is a question?
So it looks like someone said, thank you, Omar, but I don't,
okay.
from Ryan Allen, but I don't see any questions coming in yet.
Yeah, this is the, it's always, I always say this is the dry, boring part of, any kind of interesting, food. Growing the food and enjoying the food is the best part. The regulatory part and the manufacturing is a little bit of the boring part. Yeah, I just tried to make it again a general, with the caveat that going into a specific, it will depend on each situation a little bit.
So Omar, it looks like we have one question. Susie's
Sorry,
asking in.
Sorry, I couldn't get myself unmuted here.
It's all right.
Go ahead, Catherine. Sorry.
That's okay. So one question we have is, in terms of labeling, stating product contains hemp-derived ingredient is okay, but saying it contains CBD is illegal?
No, it will depend on the state. The state will be asking you probably to review your labels. The CBD per se may be considered illegal if you're selling through a state, a different state. The CBD, the actual CBD program is a product, is a drug. So you can still sell it. You can still sell hemp-derived product. You will have to very much talk to whoever is the agency on that state that handles the labeling part. And here it would be the Agency of Ag.
Great. And Stephanie Smith, it looks like you have your hand raised. Would you like to unmute?
Yes, I had a question. Actually, it's similar to Mike DiTomaso's. My question is, if hemp is not considered a food ingredient necessarily, would you recommend that somebody that might be putting it into food actually operate in a space that is CGMP certified? Because in the state of Vermont, people are allowed to produce CBD products that are food products. So I'm just wondering for our state, like, what would you recommend? So
the issue with the state in here is the moment you put it into a product that falls under the Vermont Department of I'm sorry, yeah, the Vermont Department of Health. If there is a food and lodge division, a lodging division that handles food products, they handle basically anything related to restaurants, caterers, food manufacturers, gas station, hotels, all of that. So if that's gonna fall into their jurisdiction, you really need to fill them up, you need to talk to them. One of the things that we hear a lot is that, you know, they are very busy. There are about 9-10 inspectors, and probably this state have more than 2,400 establishments for them to inspect on a yearly basis. So I don't know you're going to receive a response very quickly, but they will be guiding what are the requirements when it comes to a licensing, the type of, you know, whether they call it a commercial license, kitchen, or a type of small food manufacturing. They are the one that will tell you if you are small enough, you don't need to file, you don't need to have a license. So I would just approach them to make sure you get, you know, the right answer. So I'm saying, remember, I mentioned grass, generally recognized as safe product that are specific byproduct from hemp, and those are already given by FDA. So I don't think any state have any major legality to stop you from using them or adding them as ingredients.
Hey, Catherine, I see a few people have their hands raised, but I'm not sure if we can unmute them. Susan and Mary.
So I can, we'll go with Susan first. So Susan, you can unmute now and ask your question.
Well, I'm new at this, so everything is very basic for me. And I'm actually not making edibles, but it sounds like with the FDA accepting of the Epidiolex and the other pharmaceuticals, that no ingested products can now be done with CBD. That's almost the whole market. That's the edibles. It's everything you see at the gas station or at your local store. Am I getting that right?
You're right there. We have this framework at the federal level kind of saying, we categorize this product in here. We're going to be adamant into keeping it there, and they are. And then these states kind of relaxing and turning their eyes and moving around. And it's going to be a moment of confrontation, reconciliation, or reckoning. I'm not sure how to put it, but you got it right there. Yep. Yep. It's not unusual that the agencies allowed for some states to do things that are kind of new, different, more stringent, less stringent, as long as they control it within the state. The issue is becoming a major issue for them is the fact that, again, we can sell those products on the internet. So an FDA doesn't have the wherewithal to police all of that, and that's where we may have quite a bit of a, you know, interstate movement of product that probably is should not happen on an illegal basis.
I don't know. It sounded like Mary was having a little bit of trouble. She said she had a question. You can try to unmute her, Catherine.
Yep, I just gave her the ability to speak, so if she unmutes herself, she can speak.
I don't really have a question.
Oh, we can't hear you, Mary. She said she was having a little bit of trouble with Zoom today, so.
And I mean, I'm glad if you don't mind sharing my email. They can reach out at any time, you know, for questions.
That's wonderful. Any other questions for Omar this afternoon? Oh, Mary said she didn't have a question. Sorry, Mary. She was just struggling with Zoom. She must have hit the hit the little hand. There we go. And Catherine has put Omar's email in the chat box. So thank you again, Omar. Are there any other questions this afternoon?
Hey, Heather, it's Stephanie. there's a question from Mike DiTomaso, who works with the Agency of Agriculture along with me. And he has a question for Omar. It says, are you aware of any food safety hemp manufacturing training programs that are available to hemp operators, hemp growers, hemp registrants?
That's a very interesting question. Actually, I am not aware of something formalized with the group in EAS Consulting. We have been trying to do that. It's a group that we share a lot of information, but really I'm not sure if we can reach out to the small processors. Honestly, we're talking about medium to large companies, many of them that are doing dietary supplements, that have laboratories. I have worked in 2 or 3 cases where they couldn't eventually do what we said you need to do in order to sell, and they eventually quit the product. So this is a very interesting area. I wish we could have more information, also like guidance from FDA, because without those guidances, we don't know. For instance, if I have to train somebody to really comply with dietary supplement GMPs, that's a monster of a documentation. If they have to do it just for food, it's going to be more relaxed. So I'm not sure which one to go for. I think that's going to be an area where we're going to have more. The testing also is going to be evolving more as we get more information and feel more comfortable with some testing. We will move more to just the potencies and the basic ones associated to food safety that is more through the manufacturing and in finished product for verification.
Right.
Great question. Very, very
Yeah.
good question. Yeah.
So it's hard. So what you're saying, Omar, it's hard to put these trainings out there when we don't have all the guidance in place that we need. Is that
right? Even from the here within the agency, the Department of Health, we are assuming this product should be under commercial kitchens and all of that, but I do receive regularly some emails like, they don't get answers from them. Some people, don't want to say too much about this.
right?
So not having a good, clear regulatory landscape, even with guidelines. I mean, guidelines are amazing when it comes from the agency. It really makes us breathe, give us room to work. Without that, it's hard to predict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems nobody wants to say anything because there's just not enough solid guidance.
Right, and it becomes a cascade. By not having that, we don't have this first part. You don't know what to ask from your suppliers and the supplier of the supplier. So it becomes a little bit of an interesting scenario that I hope is going to start getting more clarification in the near future. They will not create for sure there's not going to be new regulation for a hemp ingredient. No new regulation for the dietary supplement ingredient based on hemp. No, it's just where we fit it and how it's interpreted.
Right. I think there's one more question about, do you think processed products should be tested for C. botulinum?
No, that depends on the type of product. Like, for instance, if you realize what we're doing with the plant, we are drying it, we get the biomass to about 13-14% of moisture, and it's really to prevent any kind of toxin formation that is going to be a mycotoxin. That's the tradition of how we have been drying tea leaves. Same, many grains, the same idea. Then it comes to later what you do with the product. Those products intrinsically, plants don't bring a lot of hazards. Believe it or not, the level of contamination are low. The issue is that if we eat it, raw, like the leafy greens, right? Those are the tough ones, because a small level of contamination is enough, because we don't do anything with lettuce. We just collect it, clean it up, shake it up a little bit, and that's it. Now here you have some treatment that you can do, some of those associated just to try to activate products for whatever reason. All of that will give us some ideas on the safety, and really C. botulinum is gonna be an issue when we allow for a tox, for the spores that will be there. Clostridium botulinum is almost everywhere, almost ubiquitous. You know, you find it in vegetables, you find it in animals that we harvest because of the contamination with GI tract material. So it's there. The idea is not to provide those spores the opportunity to germinate. That's it. And that's related to sometimes just, you know, pH, mild treatment, hard treatment, conditions of dryness that are what we measure in food as water activity. We know, like, for instance, at 0.92, 91, Clostridium botulinum spores are not going to grow. So we have several safety measures that we can evaluate on the product. So I don't think all of them are going to be an issue. If you create a brownie and you add an edible, those are going to go through huge temperature, and the water activity is going to be below 0.8 or 0.85. So there is no risk there.
Super.
Again, it's the idea of the infusion, and the word infusion, I've seen it unfortunately used in different words. It's actually very tempting to buy infused product, right? It looks like it's cool, but the actual infusion process is where we've seen some issue. But it doesn't mean that you cannot create an infusion that is safe. It's just that some people don't get what are the safety issues, and they don't understand that we can create these water phase areas in micro, you know, environments where Clostridium spores can grow. I might multiply, I mean, germinate. The moment Clostridium germinates, that's it. You have toxin enough to kill a lot of people.
All right. Well, not that we want to end on that
No.
statement.
No, I think
Okay.
we are overdoing this. I think we are overdoing it a lot. I have, you know, salvaged a lot of foods over the years because they were detained because of potential for Clostridium, and we have some tools to do convincing issues, even some little modeling about temperature profiles, temperature times, you know. So it's, yeah, I do believe we are overzealous or overprotected about CBOT. Yeah.
There's one more question about cosmetics like hand cream. Is the FDA regulating them as well?
If it is not a soap, yes.
Ah.
Cosmetics are under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Soaps are not.
Ah.
Soaps are different. Well, they were put aside when they created the Cosmetic Act in 1936, 37. For 2-3 years, they were struggling with what to put, what not.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, thanks for answering that. I'm not sure if Susie's question got answered. She said, in terms of labeling, stating a product contains hemp-derived ingredient is okay, but saying it contains CBD is illegal.
Maybe illegal, correct, yes.
Okay. All right. Got that defined.
So the first major step to me in all this very convoluted landscape that is in flux has been the Farm Bill, the 0.3% on the plant, separating hemp from the rest, from marijuana. So that's allow us to work a little bit. There is also a lot of people trying to make convincing evidence that probably marijuana shouldn't be a drug that is considered a substance that is prohibited, but maybe we may be there closer. We have seen some major cases now with the Olympics, right, going on. So that's a very complicated area. That's a very complicated, because we are very much polarized on whether to accept that or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to get clearer quicker or anytime soon.
No, that part, I think, Heather, it's going to be at the level of the states, and the feds are kind of going to leave it alone unless there are administration like the previous one. Remember with Jeff Sessions that was trying to go back. Remember, there are laws and regulations. It doesn't mean that we need to apply them. Sometimes we just say, look, there's no need to implement it to the teeth. So as long as we have more of an understanding by the administration that we probably should let the states run and see what happened. So far, we haven't run and we haven't fallen too many times, have we?
Not that we've heard of, but there's been a lot of other things in the news lately, like the pandemic. So
yeah, yeah, and that one we really felt several times.
Yeah.
So,
yes, exactly.
we keep tripping on ourselves. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, great. I don't see any more questions, and we are kind of pushing up at 1 o'clock. Are there any other questions for Omar before we let him proceed with the rest of his day? You probably, you have any bikes to fix today, Omar?
No, actually, my son works actually at CDC, he's a biostatistician. And he came to visit us, and we're going out a little bit with him. They already left, so I need to catch up with them, so a little bit.
Okay. Well, I don't see any more questions, and we want you to go enjoy time with your family. Everyone is saying thank you and great information, and we really appreciate it, Omar. Have a great day.
Thank you. It was nice talking to all of you, and thanks again for the invitation, Heather. Bye.
Thanks, Omar. And everyone else, hopefully we'll see you on August 10th at our in-person field day up here at Borderview Farm. We're excited to be able to get together in person. So hopefully August 10th, you can make it up to Alberg and enjoy some time out in the hemp fields. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.